It's not often that TWA calls a press conference, but this is one of the largest big deer poaching cases ever made here in Tennessee and Kentucky. We called the press conference to tell you about the incident that occurred on Friday, November 26th of this year that has led to cases against 3 Stewart County men and 1 Montgomery County man. It happened on Fort Campbell Military Installation that straddles the Kentucky and Tennessee state lines. The poaching case involved Fort Campbell, but also led to investigations in Montgomery and Stewart counties in Tennessee and Trigg and Christian counties in Kentucky. In the early morning hours of November 26, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service Refuge Officer Jason Godwin observed 2 individuals going into the small arms impact area of Fort Campbell off of Angels Road. He then contacted his partner, Officer Jeremy Curtis, and they notified several agencies in the area for help in catching the individuals that were trespassing. These agencies were Fort Campbell Military Police, Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency, Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources, and the U.S. Forest Service at Land Between the Lakes. Later that day, as the search continued in the small arms impact area, TWA wildlife officers Dale Grandstaff and Jeremy Odom apprehended Edward Page, who was hunting with a rifle. Moments later, Curtis Wallace, who was nearby and also hunting with a rifle, gave himself up to wildlife officers. The apprehension of these 2 suspects resulted in an extensive investigation over the next several weeks by the various agencies, and so far has led to the confiscation of 41 trophy white-tailed deer mounts or antler racks, and you see those behind me. We would like to ask that you please report this as a poaching case. These men were not hunters like we think of in the traditional sense. They broke wildlife laws, killed deer from areas where no one else is allowed, and then had them mounted as if they were trophies to be proud of. Hunters in Tennessee will take great offense to this action, and ironically it occurred on a military installation that played a key role in the restoration of white-tailed deer in Tennessee. What happened here was disrespectful to true hunters, to all the people of Tennessee and Kentucky since wildlife is owned by the states, and to the wildlife itself. Defendants in this case are Curtis Wallace and Gregory Crockerell of Dover, Jim Edward Page of Clarksville, and Wendell Taylor of Big Rock. I do need to note that there will be pending charges in Kentucky, and this is a continuing investigation with many other individuals being investigated for similar or associated poaching activities. And already we have numerous charges made by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency.
This particular case originated from a completely unrelated incident that Officer Curtis and I had received information on the previous night. So when this incident was initiated, completely unrelated. Right place at the right time is what it amounted to.
Do you guys have any idea how long this might have been going on? Obviously, you can't take 41 deer.
We're going to say at least 10 years, at least 10 years worth.
We've had tips in the past on all these subjects as well as others. That's why we still got an active investigation. But you know, you see the officers that work this area, and it's so large an area. So if the poaching keeps occurring, you know, it's a matter of time before they're called.
These individuals were using rifles in the impact area. It wasn't a case of spotlighting at night. We didn't have any information as far as spotlighting, baiting, no records of baiting, no records of road hunting. Basically, they were going into the impact areas during the daylight or hunting during the daytime and using rifles to harvest these deer. Usually in the fall, winter months, whenever the antlers are hard and the deer were during the rutting season when they're most active.
Yes, ma'am. I think the state has already had 1 individual in court already for the untagging issue, if they want to comment on that later. Side note on the rifles that they found in the impact area. On Fort Campbell, centerfire rifles are not allowed. Only shotguns, muzzleloaders, and archery equipment only, ma'am. So from that angle, rifles are not allowed and they're not permitted on Fort Campbell. So did you want, and maybe Officer Grandstaff can comment on the tagging issues.
The tagging issues you ask about, there was some shuffling going around with the tags and the taxidermist work. The taxidermists are being looked at, and some charges may come about for several taxidermists in the area. We're still investigating that.
We've never had a case where we're showing off 41 illegal trophy white-tailed deer. It is extensive, as Officer Grandstaff was saying. We're still active in our investigation, and we're hopefully over the next few months we can finish this off and bring this to the end. But at this time, it is pretty large. And to our recollection, we don't know of anything this large.
Can you tell us about the area where they were hunting? You described it as an impact area. Are people ever allowed to hunt there, or? Is this where they do live fire training, or describe that?
That's correct. There's several areas on Fort Campbell that are impact areas. There's a north and south impact area, which is the largest of the impact areas, and there's a small arms impact area where these individuals were apprehended. These small arms impact areas they're old-time training areas that still have unspent munitions in them, unexploded ordinances, and that's the significance of these areas being closed down, because you walk in and you have the potential of coming out minus a leg. That's why they are shut down, and because of these areas being shut down, these deer have enough area that they can grow old and they can grow big, which leads to the lure of the area.
So how enticing is it, or why are these animals so special to hunters or poachers, as you say?
There's not many places that you can go and shoot deer of this caliber every day in these numbers. There's so many big deer in these areas because they do live so long. They don't get pressure, and folks know that. Therefore, they can go in these areas and once every few days drag a deer out of the woods that looks like this. The area is sufficiently posted. That's why it's patrolled so hard by the Fish and Wildlife Service as well as TWRA and keeping these folks out of there. And it's as much of a safety issue as it is an illegal deer hunting issue.
How valuable are these? Do they hold any value outside of a trophy for the hunter?
From what we know, they didn't sell any of these racks. They were just personal trophies. But on the wall behind us, we have varying scores. And if you're in the hunting world and you follow hunting, we have anywhere from 130-inch antler deer to mid 170-inch deer. And that's on a Boone and Crockett scoring scale. That's how many inches of antler they have on their head. And in Tennessee, in this area, Fort Campbell, if you get into the 130 to 170, 180 range, taking deer like that every year, that's a trophy in this area. Those are all good mature deer or good antler deer. That's what they were going for, the big antlers, and that was the lure. As far as pricing on them, you have a taxidermy cost, which could go anywhere from $200 to $400 per head. If someone's looking to buy an antler like this, they're going to pay around that for it. If you were to go on a guided hunt to take animals like this in, let's say, other states that have a large guiding area, you're going to pay anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000, $3,000 per hunt to hunt some of these deer that have antlers like this.
The courts have already began. State court dates have already been issued, and one of the defendants has already appeared in court for his charges in the state side. Federal charges are still pending, and it's probably going to be around February before the federal court actually takes place. So to answer your question, the state will get first crack at them.
What does this do to damage hunting, the reputation of hunters?
This makes it look bad on the rest of us that do try to do it legally, and the rest of the state's constituents, whether it be Kentucky, state of Tennessee, or Fort Campbell hunters. It gives hunters a black eye, no doubt about it.
Because you are allowed to legally hunt on some areas of Fort Campbell.
Yes, ma'am. There's about 18,000 acres of impact area on Fort Campbell. The remaining of that 60,000 is all huntable property, divided up into training areas. It's easy to get an area assignment and get permission to hunt Fort Campbell just through a Fort Campbell post permit. It's a small nominal fee, and then calling in and reserving an area, kind of a first come, first served basis. There's deer like this all over Fort Campbell, but they're in their heaviest concentrations within those impact areas that are closed down.
What's the maximum penalty that these individuals face?
Probably the maximum is going to be a felony Lacey Act charge if that's the route we determine to take.
Is it possible that they may receive jail time?
It's possible.
Were there any other items confiscated other than the guns and the trophies?
There was a couple of backpacks with some various clothing items, various clothing articles, some binoculars, just typical hunting supplies.
How do you guys keep this from happening again?
I think this is serving a pretty good deterrent right here.
Do the same taxidermists do all of these?
No, sir.
Various taxidermies.
You kind of think, well, how did they get away with this for so long? these impact areas are large, heavily wooded, thick thickets of tall grass, cedars, pines. So it's kind of one of those things where if someone heard a shot one day, they wouldn't know if that was someone in the impact hunting or if that was someone training. You know, it's kind of and the way the impact areas are set up, there's hunting on one side of it, and straight across the impact on the other side there's also hunting. So if someone heard a shot from this side of the impact, they may think it's someone hunting on this side legally. So it's kind of one of those things where they got by with it for so long because of the terrain and how large and expansive it was.
And where did they have these stored?
They had them in their homes, and they were treating them as trophies. And you know what we got to remember: all these white-tailed deer belong to the state, and these folks were stealing from the state and from our sportsmen and from the folks here. It's no difference going into some store and robbing a store and taking a big plasma TV. And that's what they was doing. They were putting it in their homes, trying to show off to some folks, and it was sad trophies. Most evidence shows that all they were bringing out was just the deer heads. They were leaving the rest of the carcass there.
Oh, so they were leaving all that behind?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, wouldn't somebody find that as...
They were in areas where the public was not allowed to go because it's so dangerous.
And so no one from Post would be going there either?
That's correct.
No,
Oh,
nobody
so
goes in
you
there,
could
ma'am.
just,
Yeah,
yeah.
nobody goes in there.
Takes the honor and dignity out of it all, doesn't it?
Yes.
Exactly.
Wanton waste of the meat, and they just left it there.
Can you explain about the parachute?
You want to, Bill, or
Yeah,
I
you're
want to?
probably the okay.
Go ahead, Jeremy.
Yes, I can, sir. During the military training, they shoot off the parachutes, and they have flares and the canisters that are on the bottom. The canisters contain phosphorus, and the deer like to eat the phosphorus out of the canisters. Well, once they get close enough to the canisters, the cords, as you can see, get wrapped around the antlers. It's almost like if you have a waterfowl hunter that kills a duck with a band on it. It's something special to the hunter, and you don't see it very often. But the deer will get them caught in their antlers, and sometimes they will get them wrapped up in there and will die over it. But most times they get stuck in the antlers, and the hunters come from far and away to kill these deer, to put them up on the wall.
Were they walking in from off post, or were they driving vehicles on post?
Different areas, sir. I think they had drop-off points. People would drop them off. We've always had calls on different people, sir, and we try to work as much as we can to try to catch them. But like we said before, right time, right place, and it just worked out for us, sir. Good investigations with every agency that's involved.